Ethan never thought he would share a room with someone from another world. The day he received the acceptance letter for the Galactic Exchange Program, he thought it was a mistake. Humans had only joined the program recently, and only a few were chosen. But when he arrived at the university dormitory and saw her, tall, slender, with glowing silver eyes and smooth blue-gray skin, he realized it was real. Her name was Lyra, and she was from the planet Valaris, a world of cold oceans and floating cities. Her voice was calm, musical, and strangely soothing. When she spoke, every word carried a quiet curiosity, like she was tasting a new sound. The first few weeks were awkward. Ethan didn't know how to act around her. She didn't eat food the way humans did. She didn't sleep much. She didn't understand jokes. But she tried. Every day she asked questions, endless questions. Why do humans smile when they're nervous? Why do they keep pets? Why do they cry at movies that aren't real? Sometimes her curiosity made Ethan laugh. Sometimes it made him think. But he always answered honestly, even when he didn't fully understand the answer himself. One evening, after a long day of classes, they both sat quietly in their small dorm room. The soft hum of the air purifier filled the silence. Lyra was sitting cross-legged on her bed, her silvery gaze fixed on the rain falling outside the window. Ethan was reading on his tablet, trying to ignore the chill creeping through the air. Without warning, she spoke. "Ethan," she said softly, "what does it mean when humans say they love someone?" The words hit him harder than he expected. He looked up from his screen, confused for a moment. "Love?" he repeated, as if he wasn't sure he'd heard right. "Yes," she said, turning her head to look at him. "Your species uses that word very often. You say it to family, to friends, to partners. You write songs about it. You cry because of it. You even go to war because of it. But what is it?" Ethan blinked, completely caught off guard. It wasn't the first time she'd asked a deep question, but this one felt different. Love. How was he supposed to explain that? He rubbed the back of his neck and gave a small laugh. "That's not an easy one, Lyra," she didn't smile. Her face remained calm, but her eyes were full of quiet intensity. "I want to understand," she said softly. "On Valaris, we have bonds, connections for survival, reproduction, or purpose. But humans, you risk pain for something you call love. You stay with people even when it hurts. Why?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at her for a long time. The rain tapped gently against the window. "I guess," he began slowly, "because love is what makes life worth it. It's not about logic. It's about feeling connected to someone so deeply that their happiness becomes part of yours." Lyra tilted her head, her silver eyes shimmering faintly. "So it is selfless?" "Sometimes," he said with a half smile. "Sometimes it's selfish too. Sometimes it hurts. But even when it does, people still want it." She thought about that for a long moment, then looked down at her hands. "On my world, we are taught that pain is a failure of control. But your kind, you accept it." "Yeah," he said quietly, "because pain means something mattered." The room grew silent again. Ethan returned to his tablet, but he couldn't focus. He kept glancing at her. The alien sitting across from him, staring at the rain like she was trying to understand the world through it. There was something strange in her expression. Curiosity, yes, but also something else, something softer. When she finally looked up again, she smiled slightly. "You are a strange species, Ethan," she said. "But maybe that's why you're interesting." He laughed quietly, unsure of what to say. "Yeah, I guess we are." That night, long after the lights were out, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't stop thinking about her question. Love. What did it mean, really? He thought about the warmth of his mother's hugs when he was a child, the ache in his chest when he lost a friend, the happiness of hearing laughter that wasn't forced, and now the strange feeling he got when Lyra smiled at him, like something deep inside him stirred awake. He didn't understand it yet, but something told him that Lyra's question wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Days passed after Lyra asked about love, but Ethan couldn't forget that conversation. Something about the way she had looked at him, curious yet gentle, had stayed in his mind. She didn't bring it up again, but he could tell she was still thinking about it. Every time she saw people holding hands, laughing together, or saying goodbye, her expression would change. She would stare quietly, almost like she was trying to decode an invisible language. One morning, as they sat eating breakfast together, Lyra spoke again. "Ethan," she said softly, I want to learn more about human relationships. Will you teach me? He blinked, halfway through a spoonful of cereal. Teach you? She nodded. Yes, you said love is not logic, it is feeling. Then I must feel to understand it. Tell me how humans show care. Her serious tone made him smile. Well, he said, it's not something you can study from a book. It's about small things, kindness, trust, being there for someone. Then show me, she said simply. And from that day, their lessons began. Ethan started with simple examples. When someone dropped their books, he helped them pick them up. When a classmate was sad, he offered comfort. Lyra watched everything closely, her silver eyes following every gesture. Humans connect through touch, he explained one afternoon. A handshake, a hug, even a pat on the shoulder. Hug, she repeated curiously. That is when humans wrap their arms around each other? Yeah, it's a way to say you care or to comfort someone. She nodded thoughtfully. Then without warning, she stood up and walked over to him. Then I will try. Before he could react, she gently wrapped her arms around him. Her skin was cool and smooth, her movements careful and uncertain. Ethan froze for a moment, his heart beating faster. Then slowly he relaxed and hugged her back. It was a brief, awkward moment, but something in it felt strangely right. When she stepped back, there was a faint shimmer in her eyes. It is warm, she said quietly. Not just on the surface. Inside too, Ethan smiled. Yeah, that's kind of the point. As the weeks went by, their friendship deepened. Lyra began doing little human things without realizing it. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time when Ethan tried to teach her how to cook pasta and ended up spilling sauce everywhere. She began teasing him softly, using phrases she picked up from human movies. She even started saying goodnight before turning off her light, something she once said was illogical, since she didn't need much sleep. But Ethan noticed more than just her behavior. Her presence changed the room. She filled it with quiet warmth. He found himself looking forward to her questions, her laughter, the soft hum of her voice when she read aloud. One evening, they were sitting on the dorm balcony watching the sunset. The sky was painted in gold and orange, and the wind carried the smell of rain. Lyra leaned against the railing, her eyes reflecting the light like silver mirrors. Humans feel beauty in simple things, she murmured. In sunsets, in songs, in small moments. I never understood that before. Ethan glanced at her. And now, I think I'm starting to feel it. When I see the light fade, I feel something move here. She touched her chest lightly. It is not pain. It is not logic. It is just something. Ethan smiled softly. That's emotion. It doesn't always make sense, but it makes life real. She turned to him then, her eyes searching his face. Is this what love feels like? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He froze. For a second, the world seemed to pause, the wind, the fading light, his own heartbeat. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe. Or maybe it's the start of it. Lyra looked back at the sunset, her expression unreadable, but there was a small, peaceful smile on her lips. Later that night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her words. Something had changed between them. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It felt deeper, heavier, like something was slowly blooming in a place he hadn't known was empty. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know where it was going. But when he heard her quiet breathing from across the room, he felt calm. Maybe, he thought, teaching her about love was also teaching him something. Something he didn't even realize he had forgotten. And as he finally drifted off to sleep, he didn't see Lyra open her eyes and look toward him, quietly, softly, with a small, almost human tenderness glowing in her silver gaze. The bond between Ethan and Lyra had grown stronger with every passing day. What had started as curiosity had turned into something deeper, something neither of them could quite name. The air between them felt different now. It carried warmth, laughter, and something quiet that lived in the spaces between words. Lyra had changed. She smiled more often, laughed more freely, and spoke with softness that hadn't been there before. The once calm and distant alien now looked alive in a way that felt deeply human, and Ethan, though he tried not to think about it too much, couldn't help but notice how beautiful that change was. One morning, he woke to find her sitting by the window, watching the sunrise. The golden light touched her silver skin, making her look almost like a painting. She didn't move as he stirred awake, only said quietly, "Your world is loud. but it's full of colors. Every day looks different. Ethan rubbed his eyes, smiling sleepily. You sound like a poet. Poet, she repeated. Someone who uses words to describe feelings, yes? Yeah, he said. That's you now. She smiled faintly. Then maybe I am learning. At the university, students had gotten used to seeing them together. The human and alien pair became something of a familiar sight. Lyra asked endless questions, and Ethan answered them with patience and humor. But lately, people had begun to whisper, noticing how close they were, how Lyra's eyes always found Ethan in a crowd, how his expression softened whenever she spoke. Ethan tried to ignore it. He told himself they were just friends, teacher and student in this strange lesson about love. But deep inside, he knew it was more. He could feel it every time her hand brushed his by accident, or when her voice softened while saying his name. One afternoon, while walking back from class, Lyra suddenly stopped. Ethan, she said softly, you told me humans show affection with words and actions. Can I try one? He looked at her curiously. Sure, what do you want to try? She stepped a little closer, her silver eyes meeting his. Compliment, she said. Humans give compliments to make others feel valued. Ethan grinned. That's right. Then, she paused, searching for words. You have pleasant eyes. They change color in the sunlight. It is nice. He blinked, then burst into laughter. That's a good one. Her ears tilted slightly. A small, shy gesture he had learned meant she was unsure. Did I do it wrong? No, he said quickly, shaking his head. You did it perfectly. A soft smile crossed her lips. Then I am glad. He wanted to say something back, to tell her that her eyes were like liquid silver, or that her voice was the calmest sound he had ever heard. But the words stuck in his throat. He was scared that if he said them, something would change forever. That evening, they sat on the dorm balcony again. The air was cool and the night sky shimmered with stars. Lyra leaned against the railing, her gaze lost among the constellations. Ethan, she said after a while, you once said love means connecting so deeply that another's happiness becomes your own. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I did. Then what happens, she asked quietly, when their pain becomes yours too? Her question struck him like lightning. He looked at her, seeing the sadness in her usually calm eyes. Why do you ask that? She hesitated before answering. Sometimes. When you are sad, I feel it. I don't know why. When you smile, I feel something light inside me. Is that normal for humans? Ethan didn't know how to answer. His heart ached and raced at the same time. Maybe it's normal, he said softly. Or maybe it means you're feeling something more. Lyra's gaze dropped to the floor. More, she whispered as if testing the word. Neither of them spoke for a long time after that. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of emotions they both felt but couldn't name. The wind carried the scent of flowers from the nearby garden, and for a fleeting moment, Ethan wished time could stop right there. Later that night, when he returned from a quick trip to the cafeteria, he found a small drawing on his desk. Lyra had drawn it. Simple lines of pencil showing two figures sitting together under the stars. Under it, she had written in neat, careful handwriting. Connection, when two beings share silence and still feel understood. Ethan stared at the words for a long time. He didn't know what to call what they had, but he knew one thing for sure. Lyra wasn't just learning about love anymore. She was living it. And maybe, just maybe, he was too. The weather had turned strange that evening. Heavy clouds hung low in the sky, swallowing the moonlight. The air smelled of rain and electricity. Ethan sat by the window, watching the storm roll in over the horizon. Beside him, Lyra sat quietly, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. It had been 3 months since their first talk about love. Since then, their bond had grown deeper, so deep that sometimes Ethan forgot she was from another world. She laughed like a human, cared like a human, and even worried like one. But there was still something distant about her, something that felt like a wall she couldn't cross. As thunder rumbled in the distance, Lyra spoke softly. Ethan, may I ask you something? He turned toward her, curious. Of course. She hesitated, her gaze fixed on the rain beginning to fall. Do you ever feel afraid? Of feeling too much? Ethan frowned slightly. Yeah, sometimes, because when you care too much, it hurts more when things go wrong. She nodded slowly. That is what I thought. Her voice was quiet, almost trembling, something Ethan had never heard before. He waited, sensing there was more she wanted to say. I was not made to feel this way, she said finally. On Valaris, emotions are controlled. We are taught that feelings create weakness, but here, with you, I cannot control them. When you laugh, I feel light. When you are hurt, I feel pain inside me. It frightens me. Ethan's heart tightened. Lyra! She turned her head to look at him, and for the first time there was something unmistakably human in her eyes. Vulnerability. Is this what love feels like? She whispered. The words froze him. The thunder outside cracked loudly, but he barely heard it. His chest felt heavy, his thoughts a blur. He didn't answer right away. He didn't trust his voice. But then he saw the way she was looking at him, scared, fragile, searching for truth. He took a slow breath. Yeah, he said softly. That's love. It's scary. It makes you weak and strong at the same time. It makes you want to run and stay all at once. But it's real. Her eyes shimmered like liquid silver. Then I think I love you, Ethan. The room fell silent. The rain outside grew louder, drumming against the glass like a heartbeat. Ethan felt his breath catch. He had imagined this moment before, but hearing her say it, hearing those words from someone who didn't even understand them months ago, it was overwhelming. He stood up slowly, unsure of what to do. Lyra, He stopped. He wanted to tell her he felt the same, but he also knew how impossible it all was. She wasn't human. She wasn't even from this galaxy. But then she stood up too, her step soft and unsure. You do not have to say it back, she said quickly. I only needed to tell you. I needed you to know what I feel. It hurts to hold it inside. Ethan looked into her eyes, saw the courage it took for her to say those words, and felt something break inside him. He stepped closer until they were only inches apart. You're not supposed to feel this way, he whispered. And yet, you do. You learned love better than most humans ever will. Her lips trembled. Then it is real? He nodded, his voice barely audible. It's real. For a moment, neither moved. The world outside was dark and wild, lightning flashing through the window. Then slowly she reached out her hand. Ethan took it. Her fingers were cool against his skin, but her grip was steady. They stood like that for a long time, saying nothing, because there were no words big enough for what they felt. When lightning lit the room again, Ethan saw tears in her eyes. You have given me something beautiful, she said softly. Even if it will not last, he frowned. What do you mean? The council, she whispered. They monitor all exchange students. They warned me once before about growing. Too close. Ethan's chest tightened. Lyra, she shook her head gently. It does not matter. I do not regret it. Whatever happens, I wanted to feel this, at least once. The storm roared outside, wind howling like the world itself was alive. Ethan pulled her closer, holding her tightly for the first time, really holding her. She closed her eyes and rested her forehead against his chest, breathing slowly. In that moment, the storm no longer mattered. The rules, the warnings, the distance between their worlds, none of it mattered. Because in that small, fragile dorm room, two beings from different worlds stood together, hearts beating in rhythm, proving that love, and no matter where it came from, was the same everywhere. And though neither said another word that night, both knew something had changed forever. The morning after the storm felt strangely quiet. The air was cool, the sun pale and gentle after a long night of thunder. Ethan and Lyra sat together, neither speaking much. Something between them had changed. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something deeper, fragile and powerful all at once. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her words from the night before. I think I love you, Ethan. The way she had said it, nervous but brave, replayed in his mind again and again. He hadn't said the words back, but his heart had screamed them in silence. For a few days, everything felt different. Lyra smiled more easily now, her silver eyes soft whenever she looked at him. She didn't hide her emotions anymore. They walked together through the campus gardens, sharing quiet moments that needed no words. It felt like peace, but peace, as Ethan knew, never lasted. One afternoon, as they returned to the dorm, they found two people waiting outside the door, members of the Galactic Exchange Council. They wore the same silver badges all exchange students recognized. Their expressions were sharp, cold, and official. Lyra of Valaris, one of them said, his voice flat. You are required to come with us immediately. There have been concerns about your conduct during this exchange term. Ethan stepped forward quickly. Wait, what's going on? The man ignored him. This is official council business. Please stay out of it, human. Lyra's posture stiffened. Am I being disciplined? You'll be questioned, the woman replied, her tone polite but distant. There are reports suggesting emotional compromise. The council needs to evaluate your state of mind. Lyra's face went pale. Ethan's stomach twisted. Emotional compromise? He repeated, his voice rising. You mean because we... Enough, the man interrupted sharply. It is not your concern. Ethan clenched his fists, but Lyra gently touched his arm. Her voice was calm, though her eyes trembled. It's all right, Ethan, I'll go. He wanted to protest, but the look she gave him stopped him. It wasn't fear, it was acceptance. As if she had known this might happen all along. He watched helplessly as they led her away down the hall, her silver hair glinting in the dim light until she disappeared around the corner. Hours passed. Then more hours. Ethan paced the dorm room like a trapped animal. He couldn't sit still, couldn't focus, couldn't think of anything but her. Every sound in the hallway made him jump. When she finally returned that night, he rushed to her. Lyra, what happened? What did they say? She looked exhausted. Her glow, the faint light her skin always carried when it was dim. They know, Ethan, she whispered. About us, about how I feel. His heart sank. And they said I am no longer fit to continue the program. They're sending me back to Valaris next week. The words hit him like a punch. What? No, they can't just... They can, she said quietly. And they will. Ethan felt anger rising in his chest. That's insane. You haven't done anything wrong. You learned about emotions. That's what this whole program was for. Lyra's eyes shimmered with sadness. The program was meant for observation, not experience. They wanted me to study humanity, not become part of it. He stepped closer, desperate. Then fight it. Tell them you don't want to leave. I tried, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. They said I have been compromised, that my emotional state is unstable. They think I'm dangerous. Dangerous? Ethan repeated, stunned. Because you care? She didn't answer. Her silence said everything. That night, Ethan sat by the window, staring out at the dark campus. He felt powerless, small against the vast system that wanted to tear them apart. Lyra sat quietly on her bed, her hands folded in her lap. The faint hum of the air purifier was the only sound in the room. Finally, she spoke. Ethan, she said softly, I don't want you to be sad. Meeting you, it changed me. I learned what it means to feel. Even if I have to leave, I don't regret any of it. He turned to look at her, his throat tight. But I can't just let you go. Her eyes softened. Sometimes love is not about holding on. It's about being thankful it happened. He wanted to argue, but the look on her face stopped him. There was peace there, sorrow, but also acceptance. Ethan lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. I wish things were different. Lyra smiled faintly, her silver eyes glistening. So do I. Then she reached out and gently touched his hand. One last quiet promise between two hearts that never should have met, but somehow did. And as the night deepened around them, both knew the hardest part was yet to come. The week passed faster than either of them wanted. Every sunrise brought Lyra closer to the day she would be taken back to Valaris. The once lively dorm room now felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. The laughter that used to fill the walls had turned into quiet silences, where even the air seemed to listen. Ethan tried to stay strong, but his heart ached every time he looked at her. She moved gently now, like someone carrying something fragile inside her. Not fear, but sorrow. She still smiled, but it was the kind of smile that hurt to see. Each night they talked for hours, not about her leaving, but about everything else. Earth's oceans, her home's crystal cities, the colors of human sunsets. They wanted to fill their last days with memories instead of pain. One night, as rain tapped softly on the window, Ethan finally asked the question that had been burning inside him. Lyra, he said quietly, when you go back, will you forget me? She looked up, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Velerans don't forget, she whispered. We remember everything, every word, every feeling. But they will try to change me. They'll make me unlearn this. Ethan frowned. Unlearn what? Love, she said simply. The word hit him like lightning. He wanted to say something, but his voice broke before it even formed. She reached out, placing her cool hand over his. Even if they erase it, I'll still know. Somewhere inside, I'll remember the warmth you gave me. Maybe not as a memory, but as a feeling. Ethan couldn't hold back anymore. He pulled her into his arms. For a long moment, they didn't speak. He could feel her heartbeat, slower and steadier than a human's caught against his chest. It felt both alien and familiar, and he wished he could stop time right there. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra's eyes shimmered like stars reflected in water. I never thought emotions could hurt, she said softly. But now I understand why humans cry. He smiled sadly. Crying means it mattered. The next morning she began packing. Her few belongings, small silver devices, notebooks filled with sketches, a tiny glowing stone from her world, were neatly arranged. She touched each one with care, like saying goodbye to pieces of herself. Ethan stood by the door, watching helplessly. Do you really have to go? She nodded slowly. If I don't, they'll send soldiers to bring me. And that would hurt you more. He clenched his jaw. You shouldn't have to choose between love and obedience. Her lips curved in a faint smile. Humans break rules for love. Fellerans don't. Maybe that's why you were chosen to teach me. He shook his head. No. You taught me more than I ever taught you. She looked at him for a long time and then whispered, maybe that's what love really is, and when both hearts learn from each other. That evening, they walked one last time through the campus gardens, the same path where they had shared laughter, secrets, and small moments that had slowly built into something greater. The autumn leaves had begun to fall, brushing softly against their shoes. I used to think human emotions were chaotic, Lyra said, watching a leaf spin in the wind. Now I think they're beautiful because they don't last forever. Ethan smiled weakly. That's what makes them precious, she nodded. Yes, on Valaris everything is eternal, perfect, unchanging. But maybe perfection is not life. Maybe change is. He looked at her, amazed at how much she had grown, not just in knowledge, but in heart. As the sun set, painting the sky in orange and gold, she turned to him. When the shuttle comes tomorrow, I want you to promise me something. Anything, he said, don't wait for me. The words stabbed deep. What, Lyra, She placed a finger against his lips. Please, if you keep waiting, you'll stop living. Promise me you'll go on even if I'm gone. He swallowed hard. And what about you? Her eyes glistened. I'll carry you with me. Even if I forget your name, I'll still feel the warmth of your heart. Tears filled his eyes. He wanted to argue, to tell her he couldn't just move on. But he saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't asking to be forgotten. She was asking him to live, and so he nodded. I promise. That night they didn't sleep. They stayed up talking quietly under the faint light of her glowing stone. When words ran out, they just sat together in silence, holding hands, feeling time slip away. Neither wanted to say goodbye. Neither wanted the morning to come, but deep inside they both knew. Love wasn't about keeping someone forever. It was about being changed by them, in ways that never fade. And though Lyra would soon leave Earth, a part of her heart would always remain, beating quietly inside his. The next morning arrived too soon. The sky was painted in soft pink and gold, the kind of morning that felt almost cruel in its beauty. Ethan stood by the dorm window, watching the sunlight spill across the floor, knowing that by sunset Lyra would be gone. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the shuttle engines warming up somewhere in the distance. Lyra stood near the door, dressed in her silver uniform again, the same one she wore when she had first arrived. But now it looked different on her. The curious, emotionless alien he had met months ago was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned how to feel. She looked at him, her expression soft but full of sorrow. It's time, she whispered. Ethan's throat tightened. Do you have to go now? The shuttle won't wait, she said gently, and they wouldn't let me stay even if I asked again. He wanted to speak, to beg her not to leave, but he knew it wouldn't change anything. So instead he nodded slowly. Then I'll walk you there. Lyra smiled faintly. I was hoping you would. They walked side by side through the quiet morning campus. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wet grass. Every step felt heavier than the last. Neither of them spoke much. Words felt too small for what they were feeling. As they neared the shuttle bay, students and staff stopped to stare. A few whispered. recognizing the alien girl who had broken the rules of her people by learning to love a human. Lyra didn't seem to notice them. Her eyes stayed fixed ahead, calm and distant. When they reached the edge of the platform, the shuttle loomed before them, silver, sleek and cold, its engines humming like a heartbeat made of metal. Ethan turned to her. "So this is it?" She nodded. "This is it." For a moment, neither moved. Then slowly she reached out and placed her hand on his chest and right over his heart. "It beats faster every time I'm near," she whispered. "That was the first human thing I noticed about you." He managed a small, shaky smile. "It beats because of you." She smiled too, but tears shimmered in her eyes. "Humans are strange. You love even when you know it will hurt. You hold on even when you have to let go. I think that is the most beautiful thing about you." Ethan swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "And you came here to learn about humanity. But I think you've become more human than most of us." Her lips trembled slightly. "Then maybe I finally understand what love truly means." The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss. A voice echoed from inside, calling her name. Lyra looked back at Ethan one last time. "Goodbye, Ethan." He stepped closer, eyes full of pain. "Will I ever see you again?" She paused, then said softly, "Stars remember everything. Ethan, when you look up at them, I'll be there." Before he could reply, she leaned in and pressed her forehead gently against his, the Velaran gesture of deep connection. It was a silent promise, one that no words could replace. Then she turned and walked away. Ethan stood there frozen, watching her silver figure disappear into the shuttle. The doors closed, the engines roared, and the ship lifted into the morning sky. The sound faded and she was gone, just like that. He stayed there long after the shuttle vanished into the clouds. The silence around him felt endless. For a moment he thought he would collapse under the weight of it, but then he remembered her last words. Stars remember everything. That night he climbed the hill behind the campus, the one where they used to sit and talk about life, love, and the strange beauty of both. The sky was clear, filled with thousands of stars shining brighter than ever. He looked up, and for a second he imagined he could see her, her silver eyes, her quiet smile, her warmth. And though he was alone, he didn't feel empty, because love, he realized, wasn't something that ended when someone left. It stayed, echoing softly in the heart like a song you never forget. He whispered into the night, "Goodbye, Lyra." And somewhere, light years away, on a planet of crystal cities and endless skies, a young Velaran paused in her chamber. She didn't know why. She couldn't remember the human boy's name or face. But her heart glowed faintly with warmth, and for a moment she smiled. Somewhere deep inside she still remembered.